Well, I'm here in Florida. I'm here with other priests from the Archdiocese of Boston, and we're on retreat getting ready for that very powerful season, which is Lent. And this Lent is going to be a powerful Lent, especially in light of the situation that we're going through here in the United States, whereas there is what is known as an HHS mandate, Health and Human Services mandate, that says that Catholics have to provide coverage for at least those that are outside just the frame of a parish church, have to provide coverage that force coverage for abortion, for sterilization, for contraceptives, and things along those lines. And of course, as you know, there's a big fight because that's saying, well, you're forcing us to act against our conscience. And so there's a lot of reaction to it. There are people that are standing up saying we need to do civil disobedience. There are people that are calling the bishops to apologize for not knowing that this was coming down the pike. And to be honest with you, there were those of us who said 8 years ago, this is where this is going, and people didn't listen. Fine. The reality is all our reactions have to begin with one simple point. We have to look at what reactions or what demands we are making that are going to change the situation. And the most important demand that we can make in light of this is that you and I take this as an opportunity to decide whether or not we are going to embrace our faith or walk away from it. And that's a great time at Lent to start asking ourselves that question. And then if we're going to decide to embrace the faith, how are we going to embrace it differently than we have right up until this point? So there's the question. Are we going to embrace the faith or are we going to walk away from it? And if we're choosing to stay, how are we going to embrace the faith? This is the time for us to get deep into our faith, to get deep into what our faith teaches us, and to go beyond just saying, wringing our hands, going beyond just turning around and saying, we told you so, going beyond making demands that people get down on their knees and apologize for not listening. It's saying, what can I do to grow in holiness? Because our holiness will lead us to testify to the truth that we believe. Remember something that's important, that as St. Paul says, we are always in a spiritual battle. And we respond to spiritual battles spiritually, and the greatest way to respond to a spiritual battle is to grow in holiness. There's an interesting man by the name of Walter Wink who teaches a form of responding to challenges through using the teachings of St. Paul. And he says our fight, using what St. Paul says, is not really against organizations or people, it's against the spiritualities that are behind them. And remember, one of the spiritualities that are behind them are the words from Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, where he basically says, embrace the devil as a model and emulate the devil to get what you want. I remember a long time ago when we were going through a severe protest in Boston, people were screaming at innocent Catholics and members of the clergy, including myself, and they were screaming and they were harassing them. They were harassing children, they were harassing adults, and they were using bullhorns to scream at these people. Not all of them, but a group of people using bullhorns and screaming. And someone looked at me and said, this is demonic. And I said, that's not a bad thing. And she was like, what do you mean? And I said, because we know how to deal with the demonic. We know how to deal with the demonic. That we know from our tradition. And how do we respond? We look at the words of Father Jerzy Popiełuszko. Really simple. He was the last priest to be executed, actually tortured to death is a better word, tortured to death by the Polish secret police under the Soviet Russia. And what was it he used to teach? Right out of Romans 12. Fight evil by doing good. As a matter of fact, if you want to know what our first response should be, it should be reading Romans 12 and understanding this very powerful chapter in Romans that teaches us how to deal with many of the issues we struggle with. And it begins with offer your bodies as a sacrifice acceptable to God, and He calls us to open ourselves to a renewal of our mind that we may understand God's will. That's our first plan of action. And you know what? The more we do that, then we become like people who are able to look over the whole field and we can see every one of the different divisions, those who are against us, those who are for us, and we're like standing on a hill because we have the wisdom of God showing us, oh, this is the lay of the land. And then we can use that opportunity to say, Lord, help us to grow in holiness. Because remember, you and I don't fight evil. You might say, well, wait a minute. I learned that from right away, my early days of religious ed. We actually don't. We fight evil within ourselves. We turn from sin. But you and I don't fight evil. God does. We remain faithful to God. And when we're faithful to God, that is where evil is fought. So keep that in mind. Know that your holiness is the most important goal that we can make, not only individually, but more importantly as a community. You and I have to take this as an opportunity to say, I will grow in holiness. And when we do that, we can then see what is the best response, because once we seek to grow in holiness, then every one of our choices are going to be based on whether or not I seek to become more holy or whether or not I seek to become more worldly. Therefore, we need to be engaged in prayer. Therefore, we need to be engaged in knowing where the Lord is calling us. Therefore, we need to be engaged in the Bible. And I'm going to recommend to every single Catholic that's watching this right now to learn from your local parish priest how to read the 4-volume breviary and do it on a daily basis. You'll be surprised how much wisdom, strength, and just plain support is in the Psalms, reading the 4-volume breviary. So I'm going to encourage you to do that. Go to your Catholic priest and say, what is this 4-volume breviary this priest on Gloria TV talks about, and how do I use it? Start understanding these things, and then you will grow in wisdom to know the proper response. Because our most important thing is to understand the more we grow in holiness, the more we testify in a world that has embraced darkness. And the more we testify, we become the lines of light that shine into the darkness, because Christ is shining through us the more we grow in holiness. So, here we are, approaching Lent. What a great opportunity we have this particular year, like no other year, to say, I choose holiness, I choose Christ, and let Christ lead us how we respond in this particular issue we're going through here, especially in the United States, but in other countries as well. God bless you.